Greetings and salutations, friend. I am Jeremy Tank, and if you are watching this, I am your brand guy. What does that mean? That means you've got someone on your side and in your corner to talk about things about brand and branding and what you're trying to do to really influence the world and help them know who you are and why you matter, because that stuff is important when building a business. Letting people know what you're all about kind of matters for something these days. So, yesterday I started a whole discussion that went offline a little bit about identity and sort of what helps build your impression of who you are, and certainly how the world views who you are. And one of the interesting things to come out of that was really that you cannot experience your own identity. And a lot of that's because of the stories that get stuck in your head about yourself, the things you tell yourself, the different pieces and parts of you that are trying to sway you in some direction or another, right? So ultimately, the idea here is that you have a core consciousness. This is the part of you that is you, and it stands outside of you, beyond you, and it's sort of a piece of you that, you know, if you want to call it a soul, I'll go with that for now. Sure, if you want to call it the super consciousness, I'll go with that. Universal consciousness, quantum field, that's kind of where I lie, is in the idea of the quantum field, because to me, this whole entity, this whole consciousness that is you exists beyond the physical form, and certainly exists in the space of everything is possible. Everything is possible. And you know, when a child is born into this world, they can become anything. Really, when we say, oh, no, they can't, and there are plenty of people who say, oh, no, they can't. Why? Well, that's because of the rules and viewpoints of limitation within society, within our culture, within our world, within, you know, family and upbringing and things that happen to that child. But really, their mind is wide open. They can become anything and do anything. And it's, I mean, really, that's miraculous in and of itself. It's only when they start being raised, when you start being raised, when I started being raised, Aurelia, hello, nice to see you. It's only when you start getting raised and you're trained until about the age of 7, when the brain goes into that, you know, theta wavelength, that's super absorbing, that's super training. It's like a hypnotic state. And these kids, these super young kids, when they are born, they can be anything. You can literally put anything into their heads and they can take off with it, because everything is possible. Up until about 7, then that theta wave frequency thing, they absorb everything around them. They listen. Too much sometimes, right? They listen, they say things back, they react from the heart, they react without thinking about things because they're not considering any of that wild stuff. And really, in their minds, they can still be and do anything because, you know, unless the trauma that they have been impacted in that short lifespan has influenced them. And then later on, as I've said in yesterday's video, school, culture, careers, corporations, businesses, all of that kind of stuff uses repetition and social anxieties and it's really just this training of culture and a need to fit in because we want to be safe. We want to feel safe and be safe. And so we change who we are. We change how we react, the relationship of ourselves with the world in order to fit in order to stand out less, in order to feel safer. And that's just this additional filter on the overall quantum field, right? That everything is possible-ness of us. I've said before, when we're looking at quantum theory, there's the wave and the particle. The particle is the observed part of things. It is more defined. And the wave is literally everything possible. Consciousness comes from the spectrum of wave, comes from the consciousness of the universe. And you want to call that God? That's great. Super consciousness. If you're into the Hindu religion, you might consider this Atman, which is yourself, unbridled by all of the training and the filtering that the physical universe imposes on you in order to interact with this particle being that you and I both are. And it's through observation that we really identify what something is and who something is and who we are. And that's part of the challenge of identity that I discussed yesterday, in that we can't experience our identity. We can only be listening to all these stories in our heads and all this training and all of this other bullshit. We can only express who we are outwards. And then whomever we're talking to becomes a mirror for us, because their reaction determines, who we are based on what we're sharing. And the challenge of that is everyone who is not us is limited in understanding us. They don't live our life. They don't live inside our heads. They don't hear our hearts sing, right? It's a challenge, and that's. I actually had a conversation with someone a couple of months ago that was a Christian conversation that was all about the Tower of Babylon, and when the tower fell and everyone, according to the Bible, was split and speaking different languages, and it was so that humanity could not work together, so that humanity could not unite and build this tower that would rise all the way up to God. And I kind of posed the question, okay, I understand that, and I understand the very literal story here, but what if it's not just the different languages that are spoken at that point, but literally the inability to understand, to comprehend what I'm trying to share with you, because your perspective is so different that the word, the language, the resonance of what I share hits you differently than what I intend. And then when you repeat things back to me, it's unclear, it's foggy, maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Language is beautiful and horrible because the observation of our experience only comes through your eyes, my eyes. I can only say what life is like from my perspective. This is the part of the observation of the universe. So today, what I want to get into a little bit is the idea of identity shifting. And that's also, it goes by a couple different names these days, and I've read a few different books that call it different things. In transurfing, this is reality shifting. There's also perception shifting, enlightenment shifting, I'm looking at my notes. Some of this can also be looking at, if you're looking at parts theory, it could be the unification, the bringing together of all the disparate identities within, so that who you are echoes more of that core being. I really like how Ram Dass sort of explained this. It's like, you are this person who is interfacing with the world, and every now and again you know with absolute certainty that there is someone behind you, or someone around you that is guiding you, that is pushing you down the path, and they know where they're going and you don't. And every now and again you flip around and look behind you, and there's nobody there except this person's wife or spouse or some other person in the middle. You never really see the person who's helping you, guiding you, pushing you, driving you forward. You know that there is a force, you know that there is a person, you know that there are things that pop up in your head, ideas that come up that are genius, right? But you don't exactly know what to do with it. All you know is you got to keep moving forward somehow. Well, that idea, that consciousness, that point, that person pointing, boy, I really want to say the word point here, huh? The point is that you have a driving core sense of yourself. And I tend to think that that is like that quantum consciousness, the consciousness of everything, the idea of your soul or some part of you, Atman, that is giving you direction, giving your life direction, and that part is filtered out of you. And in this idea of reality shifting, of perception shifting, paradigm shifting, identity shifting, what we're doing is not so much changing the world as releasing the chemical bonds within us, right? We produce hundreds of thousands of proteins within us that direct the cells within our bodies how to react to everything. Everything. Speed up your metabolism. Speed up your metabolism. Slow down your metabolism. changes in metabolism, changes in blood pressure, changes in regulation of the autonomic nervous system, both the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Really, all of these things influence how your body reacts. Your body is that other than conscious point of yourself, a little bit unconscious, a little bit subconscious, right? There's pieces and parts of you that are constantly telling your unconscious self how to behave, what to do, how to react, and these emotions well up from second to second. And if we're not careful, we express through them, we use them, we are so particle, we are so body, we are so centered here and now in the physical that reaction, which is really truly fight or flight training, caveman training, really base level Neanderthal training, pushes us to move forward, pushes us to take certain steps and to take certain actions. And sometimes that's good, but so much of that training is based in pure survival. The decisions that we make that are pure survival, or they're based in decisions we grew up with that are, again, that's really survivalist. All the trauma that you may have been influenced by directs your mind, directs your body, directs your intention, directs your feelings towards things that are more familiar, less unfamiliar. Unfamiliar means unsafe, right? That's how we grow up. The things that are familiar to us, we start to feel safe with, whether they're good for us or not. And subtly, this shifts the different parts of our identity, who we are, the different pieces, they come apart. And what happens is it filters over, and we don't have the capability to be everything we can be. Now, what's interesting about the concept of identity shifting is when we look to a very unusual audience to see the total effect and ability of this concept, it is really effective. And that the audience I'm going to cite, it's a little, right? Who I'm talking about are those suffering from identity dissociative disorders, dissociative identity disorders, DID, used to be multiple personality disorders. And the thing that we see with some of this audience, which is remarkable, is that one personality can be nearsighted. Another personality doesn't need glasses. Another personality is extremely farsighted. Maybe another personality is diabetic and none of the others are. And what happens on a cellular level is that this change in the energy, this change in the person, this change in the dynamic is not something that happens over a course of months and over a course of years. Yes, it took trauma to drive their body to this. Yes, this is a coping mechanism. Yes, this is how they are internally surviving this physical world. But what's super fascinating about it is that when they shift from one identity to another, literally their body chemistry in a very short amount of time completely transforms. So what does that tell us? Well, if somebody is having this happen because of trauma, then maybe we can reverse engineer and utilize some of this same mechanism to benefit us, right? I mean, that's the point. We want to make ourselves, the goal of our fight or flight, our basic caveman system, our Neanderthal thinking, the limbic brain, a little bit of that midbrain, definitely the spinal cord. The whole point of all of it is to give you your identity, your experience, the things that you are observing in your life in you because you are the driver of your experience, the things that you observe. We want you, we want you to feel more satisfaction, which should lead actually to more pleasure, more play, things that are good for you, right? And we want you to stay away from more pain. That's the whole point of all of these systems. All of them are feedback mechanisms in the physical body to help you get more satisfaction out of living and stay away from pain. So okay, so what does that mean? How do we do this? What are the 3 steps? Okay, so there's always 3 steps to things because there could be a dozen steps and we can still count it down to 3. That's copywriting and graphic design coming down in me. That's like, how do we design this to make it simpler? How do we design this so that people can get it? And it's always 3 steps, always. So identity designing. If the experience of your identity is not for you to have, it's for you to share. So, how do we get to that core person, who you are, that greatness that is you? Because you know you're great, right? Of course you do. Of course you do. You're here watching this. Of course you know you're great. So how do we release that? How do we get past it? Because you know you are great. You know you are worthy. You know you are enough. You know that everything in the world is available to you. But how do you get it? If you change who you think you need to be, your identity, you are not being true to who you are. You are not being true to, thanks Aurelia. You are not being true to your heart, to your energy, to your vibration, to your frequency, to that core self coming through into this physical body, to that great quantum field of everything being possibleness. If you try to shift who you are not true to this ideal. You are literally trying to be somebody else. And there's great hypnotherapy tricks in this. There's a great there's a great tool, I love this, tool where you stay in a place and you embrace the idea, the concept of somebody else, and you say, how can I, and see, here's where my mom might have used the word channel. How can I channel all of the goodness of, all right, guys, I'm sorry. Austin Powers is the one that's popping in my head, so I'm going to do this with Austin Powers. How can I channel the goodness of Austin Powers into my life? How can I take the positivity that is Austin Powers and just leave the rest of the crap that I don't need to deal with, right? How do I take that and literally thinking through, maybe I haven't seen those movies in a while, so just roll with me on this, but really thinking through what are the best parts of his identity, what are the best parts of his vibration, his energy, his joie de vivre, right? What are the best parts of that, and how do I own that in my life? And maybe it's, you shake it off and you get a little bit looser in your body. The body, this is the other than conscious mind, right? This is the subconscious. You have your heart, which is magnetic fields all around you. You have your gut, which is telling you, oh gosh, so much. Your gut, guys. Your gut controls your emotions more than you ever know. If you're not taking probiotics, you might consider, because it helps. These are part of your digestive and heart's system. Oh, somebody had a sad face. That's so sad. So all of these things, when you do this, you want to embrace like what you want, who you want to be. And so this is like some of the tools. You just try to be this, but the thing is, it's still not you, right? It's still not you. So the 3 things, get down to it. The 3 things you can do is 1, imagine where you want to go with your life, with your next step, with your next everything, because you have to confront those pieces of you that are the trauma memory. And my wife is a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and so I've read quite a bit about yin-yang theory and 5-element theory. And 5-element theory is really interesting because each of the elements corresponds with tissues in the body. And reading about this, I really believe that a lot of these traumas are identified, triggered through the fight or flight systems, and if you can express that and move through it and learn from it, it is easy to release that energy back into the universe. Nothing gets really trapped. You feel good, fine, safe, happy to be alive, grateful to be alive. And when you don't, then these traumas, this energy, it gets impacted somewhere in your system. It ends up transforming. Hormones transform proteins transform through cellular walls into the DNA, into the mRNA, transforming the DNA, because they stack like Legos. And when they do the transcription process, running through creating new proteins, it changes every time a new protein stacks on top. It changes how your body reacts to things. It changes it changes your DNA on an epigenetic level. And with the looking at that dissociative identity disorder group, we can see that this actually happens in minutes, in seconds, like lightning. And so part of what we need to learn to do is we need to recognize when we hit, oh, hearts, thanks guys, when something is hitting, when we hit a wall. And this is where the idea of Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism sort of comes in. When we hit that wall, a lot of times that wall is our trauma emotions, something that was happened to us or through us, or we learned in that early age through that theta state, and it became an emotional stagnancy, proteins in the body, perhaps even DNA structures in the body that got stuck that way. And that happens a lot. In Chinese medicine especially, it's all about stagnancy and flow, which another way, guys, of saying the wave and the particle. We're easily talking quantum physics in the Chinese ancient medicine stuff here. Because it's all about stagnancy and flow. And when stagnancy happens, it backs up, it changes other systems. Everything balances out. So when there's a stagnancy, you're not expressing emotion, you're expressing too much emotion, it overflows. And so really coming to a point of, I'm not sure if it's stoicism or if it's simply finding the space to reflect on what you are actually feeling before taking the choice in the actions. Because when we, step 2, start to move through the trauma, acknowledging I am safe, I am comfortable, I am not in a danger state, I feel wonderful, I feel vibrant and expressive, excited, ready to go towards this next step in life, right? I just talked myself through an entire welling of trauma cycle pretty quickly. And you can do this because your brain listens to what you say. Unlike identity, which is based in what someone else is seeing of you, you are the genius of your own programming. And when you listen to somebody else telling you how to be, you're listening to how they are, and maybe it's not so great programming for you. But you can always come back and reprogram you, because the conscious mind can doubt what other people say. The subconscious mind often doubts what other people say. But neither one of those doubt what you say to yourself. You are the most powerful programmer of your mind. And allowing yourself an opportunity to face things where you find fear, spiders, allowing yourself to feel that, to overcome it, to move past it and through it. And by all means, use your heart and your gut. How does this actually make me feel? Where in my body do I feel this resistance? Because in Chinese medicine, we're hearing, or we're seeing that, that could be heart, lungs, kidney, liver, bone, skin tissues. All of these places hold these proteins that transform your body on a DNA level. So you have to kind of move through it. It's not something you do all at once. It's something you take all of these ideas, these memories that are stored as energy in your body, as proteins in your body. And each of these proteins, of course, on a quantum level, is vibrating with frequency at a certain way that influences the symphony of frequency, the symphony of vibration that is you. You are a musical. You are a symphony. You are such magical sound. Your whole body, your whole essence is vibrating in this amazing symphony. And when you have these discordant traumas, it's like the flute player in the back who just keeps hitting a sharp or a flat every time, and they're not getting it. It's like the drum player who just, never figured out how to trill those drums the right way. They just it's not making the music quite right. It's not letting that true conscious core of who you are shine through. So identity shifting, what we're talking about, is really returning you to the natural state, to the childhood state, right? How many times have you read something that said, the truly enlightened person is like a child? I know the Dalai Lama said that at some point, and many people have expressed it since. In Chinese medicine, it's a lot about returning to a point of metal, which could also be gems. Metal, the element of metal, it is closed off. It's very stubborn and static and stuck. But the thing is that metal can also be a gem, which is a transformation, right? It's taking the static, stuck nature and polishing it, shining it to something that is open and gorgeous and shiny, and that's really identified with curiosity, openness, willingness to experience. And that's what we're trying to get here with this whole idea of identity shifting, is that you're limited by your experience. But that is not who you are. And you are certainly not limited by your identity, because you don't even experience your identity. You have a very narrow scope of what even reality is. And your reality is just that. Your reality. You are the observer of your universe. You are the one that gets to decide what your experience, what your influence, what your sight, sound, hearing, touch, taste, smell, what that means to you. And because of that, every time you create a judgment, an intention, a interpretation of any of those senses, you are crafting the world around you and how you receive it. And what we're finding in quantum science is there really isn't an objective reality. Everything is subjective, meaning everything is you. Everything you see, hear, feel, touch, smell, taste is a direct relation to how you relate to the world. Now that's miraculous. It really is. And the reason it's miraculous is because, one, once you accept that you can return to a natural state, and you absolutely can. You are enough, you are good enough, you are worthy, everything is available to you. You can return to a more natural state, being open, being loving, being curious, being grateful, all of these things, all of these feelings, all of these sensations, all this time to take some spin on bad things that are happening in your life. Retrain your brain through the reticular activating system to look for more of those. And then point two, you move through the trauma. You embrace it. You confront it, yes, not angry, but you confront it as a friend who needs some, pardon my language, bitch slapping. Sometimes you got to do that to yourself. Sometimes you got to bring up those feelings and say, look, I feel it, I know it, I hear it, I see it. I don't want to feel that anymore. I need to move forward. You need to get okay with the fact that we are safe, we are good, we are here, we are steady, and life is great. And we can do this. And we're worthwhile, right? And when you do that, when you embrace that and move through it and really do that, it starts to look like the quantum wave itself, right? You start on a point of up here, and what you're doing is you're moving in a direction. It's like learning anything new, and you are teaching your body in a way to be something new, to see something new, to observe, to experience something completely new, because your identity before was literally ignoring most of what was going on in the world around you and focusing on the things that you were intent were your experience right here and now. Over 10,000 things that your body can sense in any given second. 10,000. And your reticular activating system prioritizes 40. 40. If your identity inside your head, if the stories you tell yourself, if the energy you dedicate to your life is about, I am not good enough, I cannot get things right, stuff never works out for me, computers hate me, you are forming quantum connections with the neurons and the energy in your body, the fluctuations of vibration, the proteins, the cellular guidance. You are literally using the magnet of your body and your mind and creating quantumly entangled relationships with the universe around you. And one, the reticular activating system loves that shit because it will make sure you see more of it. That's not good. to the universe, which is you, which is Atman, which is that consciousness, which is your soul and God and all of that all at once, will say, this is what the person wants. This is what you want. You want computers not to like you? Okay. I'm going to throw some stray electrons into your computer and it's just going to glitch, right? I have seen that happen far too many times. Computers love me. Electronics love me. This is something I have said since I was probably 18. Computers love me. I have never had any problem with electronics. I have met so many people that the instant they get a new computer, I suck at computers. Computers always hate me. Something always goes wrong. And what happens? Something goes wrong. Computers are ones and zeros, on, off, electron flows. What are electrons? Electrons are subatomic particles that are influenced by quantum connection, by the flow of energies, a lot of which we don't even really detect. But they make a difference. And this is how they make a difference. And I'm sure you have experienced something in your life that is exactly like this. You may not even have known that the light in your eye is a photon that can connect with a muon or a kuon or an electron. These things that are so small, when they say, how big is the atomic mass? They go, doesn't really matter. It's negligible. But it influences everything in the world. And it influences you. And by positioning your brain in a more positive space, pushing through some of those things that are traumatic to you, and why would you push through that? You would push through that to stay the person that you are, not changing your identity, but to stay who you are, true to yourself, moving past the things that scare you, frighten you, anger you, separate you from others. Trick you into believing you are not enough, that you are not good enough, you are not worthy, because you absolutely are. You are born that way, and you have been trained into not being that way. And this stuff does affect you. It affects people with dissociative identity disorders, like super rapidly. Which just says, how much training have you actually gone through in your life? How much do you believe the things that you have been told about life, the universe, and everything, in that you don't think you can change that quickly? Because you can. We see it with the dissociative identity disorders. We see it in some of these, one identity has diabetes, another doesn't. And it's not just diabetes. There's lots of diseases that span between the identities because it is the representation of the trauma through separate, distinct core personalities or groups of personalities that manifest that within the body. And what is that personality? What is that but the identity coming together to be more successful, to accomplish something, and to feel less pain? Well, folks, you deserve to feel more successful. You deserve to feel more satisfaction. You deserve to live without pain. We all deserve to live without pain. And the ways to do this, the ways to unite the cells, the structure, the trauma, all these things inside of us to shift the reality that we want. No, the shift reality we have to the reality we want. We want to shift into a new reality. We want to shift into a new identity. We want to shift into a new paradigm. And what does it is not you changing the world. The world is not going to change. The world is the way the world is. You are observing it. You are partaking of it. You are experiencing it. And your observation of how you experience it, partially programmed by that reticular activating system, determines everything. I think that's about all I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching this. My name's Jeremy Tank. I've got a program called Manifest Design that's all about really, it's a one-to-one program where we talk about your vision, your goal for the future, the things that you're doing, how to get there. It's really a branding program to really identify your uniqueness and position whatever it is you want for your future, whatever that goal is, and help you get there. And part of it is this process I'm talking about. Part of it is using tools to retrain your brain to knowing that you are good enough, to knowing that you are capable of doing it, and to being brave enough to face all of those separate parts, all of those separate identities, all of those separate ideas when they come up, because you're worth it. Because life is worth it. And too much of the time we are just trained that this stuff is meant to be hard and a trudge and awful and stressful, and I don't believe that. fact, I refuse to believe that. This life is meant to be fun. Life is an experience. If you are the energy being and you're here and you are being observed as a particle, then you want to get back to the wave. But you know what, dude? Ride the particle while you're here. That's all I've got for today. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.